When I talk about mandalas, most people go, what's a mandala? So I'll say, well, how about a medicine wheel? They say, well, what's a medicine wheel? So I realized that a lot of my work that has occurred, like the mandala behind me, seem to exist in their own right without much context to our story. But I realize maybe if we think more along the lines of the revelation that comes from art, not so much trying to say that this is relevant to how we pay for the bill at the drugstore or something like that, but much more about what Jung started to really get at, where he said the mandala is the God consciousness within us, meaning that it is that which creates or allows for harmonious states of consciousness, which moves us into meditation, but meditation with an object in mind, meaning that pattern that when we meditate, the brain recognizes. It's beyond the ego. It's not what you or I recognize, but it's pattern recognition. And this is very important for settling many of the psychic and problematic states of consciousness, because we don't essentially have words that will make the sea of chaos within go away. But many of the traditions, and the mandala tradition, which goes to the Eastern traditions, and the medicine wheel tradition, which comes out of the indigenous traditions, really start to offer us that why it matters is that many of the cures we look for culturally just aren't there. We can take medication, but we turn into zombies, or we don't like who we become. And that's why the ancient ones, the elders, and these other traditions, and my mandala, which was not a conceit of mine, but actually the outcome of my asking questions. And what it started to really suggest is that we are at a point as human beings of having to ask questions of, are there tools I can use that begin to nurture this other quality of mind? Meaning, think about the bud of a flower, right? It doesn't know what's inside of it. It doesn't know it's going to blossom. And if it said, well, you're going to blossom, it'd think, well, what's a blossom? I don't know what that, I only know this. And so a lot of this imagining, like the imaginal cells of the butterfly, this use of imagination, literally in order to draw forth, to bring forth missing elements, or in the case of the butterfly, the wings, but that's a great metaphor for the human being. Meaning that simply because we don't know about something doesn't mean it might not be very crucial to our deeper understanding. And I'll speak personally here. When the mandala effect and the DNA effect came from my painting, Phoenix Arise, it started to suggest, and now think about this, aren't we trapped in a belief system that says you basically are meaningless, you don't come from anywhere, and you're going to die and that's about it, or you're going to be condemned after you die? Whatever it is, it really leaves us pretty adjacent to an interesting story. And I really think that this is teaching me, because of the, in a sense, the miraculous nature of a lot of these things, that who and what we are, like love, is not something we figure out beforehand, figure out how to do while we're doing it, but we allow it to move through us, and it becomes that mentoring energy that begins to allow us to see the world differently. And that's like the mandala. It can be the eye pupil, the blossoming of a vision that finally says the part this might play is a quality or a technology that as I contemplate, as I create these mandalas, as I open up this pattern level of my brain, I will realize, just as my DNA reveals, I'm encoded with ancient knowing. And that's what keeps this body and mind alive beyond my capacity to know it ever consciously. And I still live, and I still don't know how. But that's why many of the deeper principles of who and what we are come through art. Because art doesn't educate, it liberates. It says, if you pay attention to me, it might be a unique relationship we have, but I'll remind you who you are is a quality of consciousness that did come to blossom. And this is your season. So my question to you is, will you use the tools before you? Or will you say, oh, there's nothing relevant here? I think the decisions we make all the difference. And I use my life as an example. Thank you.